Happy Thursday, my friends, and welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. Ooh, a little burp there. But thank you very much for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. On today's episode of the Prime, we're going to be giving you our Central Division off-season preview. As a lot of teams have a lot of decisions to make in this division. I'm, of course, your host, David On Point Huffman. I should be joined here momentarily by Mr. TJ Hopkins. Speak of the devil. There is Mr. TJ Hopkins right there. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'd be better if my laptop was cooperating, but here we are.
Well, my laptop's kind of running on thin ice, too. But let's not waste any time. Let's talk about the Central Division. Let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. They had obviously a pretty disappointing end to their season as they got eliminated by the Indiana Pacers, I think in 5 games in the first round of the playoffs. They were 49-33. They have the 23rd overall pick. They don't have a single player that is a notable free agent going into this offseason. So let's talk about the Bucks. Do they just run this back, or do you think there's going to be a roster shakeup of some sort? And what should their priorities be this offseason?
But obviously, you go into next season thinking that we didn't have Giannis, and then we lost Dame halfway through that series against the Pacers. Now, obviously, if those two dudes play, it's a different ball game. I think they're the one that dispatches the Pacers in 6 games. 6 games.
I agree with you on that.
Like healthy Dame, healthy Giannis, everybody goes back into their natural role. And
also you got to think about this. They missed Chris Middleton for a big chunk of the season. We're talking about a Milwaukee Bucks team that might have an even better record than what their record was this most recent season. They were the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, but they could have been better than that.
I'd say no one wants to talk about that. It plays a role, but the bigger issue is the Giannis is turning into the type of player that no one thought he'd turn into. And that's a diva. He ran Budenholzer out. Adrian Griffin had them with the best record in the East, or at least one of the best records in the East,
Yeah,
and
they
he
were still
ran
never better than Boston, but
he ran him off. And Adrian Griffin was probably at home sipping on some whiskey, watching them implode in that playoff series. Like, hey, you can't blame me.
But I think if you're Milwaukee, I mean, you gotta keep telling yourself like, hey, if we have Giannis, a healthy Giannis, we're not eliminated in the first round. Like we made this trade, like let's kind of see this through because I'm not sure what kind of value like Brook Lopez stood on an expiring deal. I mean, you could potentially look to package up Brook Lopez, but what are you going to get that's going to be better than Brook Lopez? That's going to be more valuable to this team. I just don't see that equation. I have a coworker that's a big Bucks fan. He's from that area. He's talking about like maybe trading for like a Dorian Finney-Smith and some role players. I'm like, I think I'd rather have Brook Lopez than Dorian Finney-Smith and some throwaways from the.
I think another territory that the Bucks are in, and we see this a lot with championship caliber teams. It's almost like a reluctancy to play your younger guys. Um, and like
Yeah, I mean, Marchand
I
Beauchamp. I mean, he could have been playing more minutes this season. I mean, they needed a facilitator, guy who could create his own offense and create offense for others, and that guy didn't play that much minutes in the series, the whole season.
and I understand like the hesitation to an extent, right? And like we saw it in Golden State, like, but it turned out to be too little, too late for for them. And so if you're Milwaukee, like this is kind of what you got going forward. And what do you do at 23? I don't know. Like I can see them getting a potential backup wing to like hey Chris Middleton, you had better days. We're gonna start.
Yeah.
We're gonna start that process of you out, new guy in. I can see them getting a backup big. Hey, Brook Lopez, you for sure have seen better days. Like your
Yeah,
lateral
30,
quick.
36 years old. I mean, this is not a young roster. I mean, I think it wasn't like the oldest roster
Roster.
in the NBA. Um, yeah, I
The
think that what
oldest
they
is
do at
up
20,
there.
because the only way they can move around this roster is really with that 23rd pick and potentially the expiring deal of Brook Lopez. But I think if you're Milwaukee, I think you want to tell yourself, hey, like we're better than our record was last season, and we're better than being eliminated in the first round. If all of our guys are healthy, because we never really got to experience what that even looked like, really. I mean, Damian Lillard missed a bunch of the season, Chris Middleton missed a bunch of time, and Giannis missed a bunch of time towards the end of the season. Like those guys really never got to gel together. And you got to look, and if you got to look at like the Minnesota situation, right? Like Minnesota traded for traded a bunch of stuff to get Rudy Gobert. That first season was kind of a watch because Karl Anthony Towns didn't play much that year. It wasn't until the next season that they really realized like what they were capable of on the basketball court.
On the Damian Lillard aspect, it's so like he's gonna have some extra motivation. Obviously, like his personal life is his personal life. I'm not gonna get into that no more than what's already been said. What's up, Izzy? But I expect Damian Lillard to be more focused next season. I also expect him to be motivated on the sense of
I
people
mean,
are out
Drew Holiday.
the Drew Holiday aspect. People are out there saying Boston trading for Drew Holiday and not Dame is the best decision they've ever made. And
Well, I mean,
if you
they never had the assets to trade for Damian Lillard. Drew Holiday was a cheaper option, but I mean, the conversation about the fact that the trading for Damian Lillard was never on the table for the Boston Celtics.
and that's the confusing part. Like Damian Lillard was like never going like Boston and Damian Lillard was never a talking point. Like that was never going to happen. So
But I mean,
yeah,
and I mean, Drew Holiday. I mean, he's asked to be like the fourth best offensive player on that team. I mean, Drew Holiday in Milwaukee was at times the second best offensive player, and that's really not his role. But yeah, Milwaukee's. I think they got some decisions to make in the offseason. You want to weigh in Milwaukee before we move on to Indiana?
You know what, man, Milwaukee. They just got to get healthier, man. I mean, just got to get healthy at the right times. I mean, if they can do anything to possibly get a little, I hate saying get younger, but yeah, get a little younger.
I just said that. I just said
you
that.
did?
Like,
I didn't hear. I just came
no,
out.
no, because like before you came on, I said like they did what championship teams kind of struggle to do, and that's play their younger guys.
Yeah.
And when you,
I think Andre, what's his name? Is it Andre Jackson?
Jackson, something like that.
Andre Jackson from UConn. I like him. He's a nice little point forward type of player. Who else do they have? They have
I mean, they AJ Green, they have Marshawn Beauchamp, they have
Marshawn Beauchamp. That's the kid I was talking about. So those young guys. I mean, AJ Green was a bit of a flamethrower for him in certain moments in this season. So I think kind of continue to develop some of those guys. But I think the key priority is make sure that Giannis is healthy for the season, and Dame has some help. I love Bobby Portis took a step up. I mean, Brook Lopez. I mean, he's only getting older, so we might have to start looking, in other directions. Maybe Bobby Portis starts, taking that complete reign, and maybe we start getting a younger, more athletic guy off the bench. Pat Connaughton. I don't. If he's a free agent this year, I haven't looked at the books, but Pat Connaughton is just he just doesn't give you anything. He doesn't give you anything. And so I think, also like you said, the whole Drew Holiday thing, if they can get over that hump, because there are a lot of folks that are saying like, hey, damn, you guys should have never got rid of Drew for Dame because you lost all this defense, yada yada yada. Well, it wouldn't have mattered this year anyways because Giannis was hurt. It wouldn't have mattered. So I think the key priority though is just
that's the last 2 playoff series in a row that Giannis has missed time during the actual playoffs when it matters most.
And actually be functional. Okay, let's get rid of this next year. Can we get rid of the dysfunction that ran rampant in that franchise? Getting rid of Adrian Griffin. I mean, like the whole Doc Rivers thing. Like I know you're gonna start a clean slate with him. But let's not be dysfunctional this year. Next year.
Moving on from them, let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have a lot of decisions to make this upcoming offseason. They have the 20th overall pick. Their most notable free agent, not that this is really saying a whole lot, it's Isaac Okoro, who was a top 10 pick at one point in his draft. They can make a decision on Evan Mobley if they want to extend him. They do. Donovan Mitchell can be extended this offseason as well. If they want to give him, I think it's going to be like close to a supermax, close to what Jaylen Brown signed this most recent offseason. But yeah, I mean, they have Caris LeVert is an expiring contract, and there's a lot of conversations about potentially trading Jared Allen, who has 2 years left on his deal at a pretty team-friendly deal at $20 million per season. And there's a lot of conversation about potentially trading Darius Garland just to kind of free up that logjam there at the point guard position. But he has 4 more years on his contract that he signed, I think, last season or the year before. If you're Cleveland, do you make a trade? What do you do with the 20th overall pick? And what should your priorities be with the Cleveland Cavaliers? And do you think Donovan Mitchell is going to sign that extension? Because I've heard a lot of rumors that he's leaning towards signing it.
Priority number 1 is get a coach. You don't have a coach right now. And you fired JB Bickerstaff, and I ain't like that.
I think the JB Bickerstaff stuff has ran its course. I thought he should have been fired last season, but
you run into the issue that the Lakers are running into now. Like who's out there? Who's out? Like who you gonna get to replace him that's better than him? To be fair, being fair to JB Bickerstaff, who out there? Like they interviewed what's his name, James Borrego. Now, to be fair, James Borrego had a terrible roster in Charlotte, so give him a grain of salt. But at the same time, you fired JB Bickerstaff after going to the second round of the playoffs. And you fired him. Why?
They interviewed Kenny Atkinson, but I feel like Kenny Atkinson's like almost damaged goods. Like I would be really reluctant to hire him after what happened with the Charlotte Hornets a couple seasons ago.
What's his name? Donovan Mitchell.
Dave Yeager's another guy they interviewed as well.
Didn't play against the Celtics. Well, he played like 2 games and then missed the rest of them.
He missed the final 3 games of that series.
Jared Allen didn't play at all, and I think they're kind of out on him because I think it was a rib issue, right?
Yeah, well, I think they've come to the realization that having Evan Mobley and Jared Allen on the court at the same time just doesn't seem to be productive. Like they don't seem to play well together.
It was it's the only example I can think of. It was like a Toradol shot that Jared Allen could have taken in the ribs that would have helped him play. Then Jared Allen's like, no, I don't want to do that. And that kind of like, I guess they're using his reluctancy to take the shot and play against him. And Jared Allen's like, I've done the research. I've read that like that stuff is not good for you. I'm not. Plus, that shit is painful. Like a shot to the ribs, because they got to go beneath the rib and into the cartilage to shoot you up. That shit is painful.
Yes. Yeah, so it was a rib injury for Jared Allen, but they also don't have any, like, they're not going to be able to sign a free agent. They're already over the projected cap at $141 million. So like, even if the really only option is to either like make some sort of trade with like an expiring Karis LeVert, maybe a sign and trade for Isaac Core, but whoever wants him. This is going to be the roster like we talked about with Milwaukee. Like unless they really shake this up, I mean, they're going to be probably running this back. I mean, Max Strus is under a contract for another 4 seasons. I mean, Darius Garland, all of these guys are
young. Your saving grace is everybody's young. Like the oldest dude on the team is 27, 28 years old.
Yeah, Max Strus is 28.
That shit saved. Like that's why that job should be like super attractive. And the only way it's not attractive is if they just say, you know what, Donovan Mitchell, enough with the back and forth. Sign it or we'll trade you somewhere else. Like that's the only way it's not.
That's going to happen. I mean, they're going to offer him whenever free agency quote unquote hits, like whenever they're able to sign players to new contracts, whenever the new league year starts, that super max extension will be on the table for Donovan Mitchell. If he does not sign it, he will be traded before the season starts. Guarantee it.
The Knicks
and you also you're there are a lot of teams that have some assets they could get for Donovan Mitchell. I mean, the Spurs have some assets. Utah has. I mean, that'd be ridiculous if we went back to Utah. But yeah, my bad. I'm just thinking of teams like the Thunder have assets. I don't think that's a great fit. But there are teams that have assets. There's not just the Knicks that are going to be in play here.
I don't know. I just don't like how
you could also go the cheaper route and look to if you're another team like Darius Garland is semi-damaged goods right now. He didn't play good last season. I know he had like a thing with his eye, and then he had a bunch of crazy injuries the last 2 seasons in a row. But he hasn't played well. And like if you like, maybe you can convince yourself another team like, hey, let's give up some assets and get Darius Garland. Maybe we can rejuvenate his career. They're gonna have decisions to make this offseason for sure.
The the knock against Darius Garland is like, yeah, he'll give you buckets, but he's gonna give up some buckets. So, but that's also the issue with Donovan Mitchell. Like I'm not gonna sit here and act like Donovan Mitchell is this lockdown defender either. Like that's.
I mean, he came into the NBA as like a lockdown defender. Izzy, you want to weigh in on this?
I think a lot of the you guys make good points. I think Donovan Mitchell's gone. I think there's a trade package out there for him. I think I don't know where he lands. I think he'll land somewhere out west. And purple and gold. Somewhere over there, I think. But yeah, I don't think Cleveland is, running this roster back at all. It's either between Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, but I think probably even both might be gone. They may trade both of them and get. I think
the decision is going to be made. I think the decision is going to be made between the 2 of those guys. I don't think they're not trading both away.
Yeah, and definitely I agree with David about trading either one of Evan Mobley or Jared Allen.
If I'm
the Cavs, I'm trading Jared Allen. I'm not trading Evan Mobley. You know what I'm saying?
We saw what Evan Mobley looked like when he was the
we did.
He put up big numbers in that playoff series.
I think a key priority for this team is to get more shooters. If you are going to run it back, if you're trying to run it back with a guy like Donovan Mitchell, with a guy like Darius Garland, you need more shooters, around to surround them. I know the one Sam Merrill, a pretty nice shooter, but he's not
consistent shooters.
Yeah.
Like they got shooters, they just you need consistent shooters.
Yeah, well, they're streaky shooters, and so you need. I mean, if you're gonna be in that upper echelon, that top 4, top 5, you're going to want to compete with a team like Boston, especially the way Boston shot the damn ball this year. You're going to want shooters around. You're going to want to keep up with the 3-point ball, especially in the East. So I think 1 is shooters. 2, you got to figure out what you're going to do with, your whole roster situation with Donovan Mitchell. Obviously you're going to want to keep him, but I think there's a trade package out there that can get you a lot for Donovan Mitchell. And I think if the Cavs are looking at it like, hey, if this thing hasn't worked out with, Donovan Mitchell for the last 2 years, I don't necessarily think Donovan Mitchell's happy there, in my opinion. So I think that is going to be a priority for them in the off season. So and then with the 20th overall pick, I mean, golly, whatever.
There's so many directions they can go.
Yeah, who's best, who's available,
Swinging from there, let's talk about the Indiana Pacers, who just got knocked up in the Eastern Conference Finals by the soon-to-be NBA champion Boston Celtics. They have some notable free agents here. Obviously, the most notable there is Pascal Siakam, who they did trade their first-round pick, which is why they don't have one in this upcoming draft. Obi Toppin, who's really rejuvenated his career a little bit in Indiana, is a restricted free agent this season as well. And then they also have Doug McDermott, who I think will probably just be. Well, they
in the
will.
words of Hawk Harrelson, he gone.
They will have a near max slot on top of the Pascal Siakam contract that they're going to give. They will have about $30 million or so in cap space once they get some of the other stuff off their books. But I think that one of the big thing is like Indiana's not going to sneak up on anybody this season. Like, how do they handle expectations? What should be their priorities this offseason for this team?
Trade a first-round pick for Pascal Siakam just to let him walk.
Well, I mean,
no, he ain't walking.
I think he's going to resign. I would be legitimately shocked if he
went to the Eastern Conference Finals. He loved it there. Come on now.
I would be pretty surprised if he went anywhere else this offseason.
And I think that's the priority. You got to prove to the people that this wasn't a fluke.
If we're gonna be real on this show, Indiana is the only team in the playoffs to give Boston some
any
sweat. Any type of trouble, even though they got swept. This, that series reminded me of the Chicago.
I mean, it could have been easily been 3-1 Indiana.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the mind-boggling plays,
if it wasn't that terrible decisions in game 1, I mean,
terrible decisions in every game, in my opinion.
It was pretty much every game.
This team is. I really love this Indiana Pacers team. I don't really think, honestly, in terms of priorities, I think it's just continue to grow the roster. I mean, continue to get better. I mean, we're talking about the Indiana Pacers. They were without a Benedict Mathurin in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So get him healthy.
He's a guy that because you didn't play with him for most of the season. I mean, he's somebody you could flip around as a trade chip, and see if you want to improve the roster in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, and so you add, a guy like
you had Jarris Walker, who was a top 10 pick this most recent.
Jarris Walker, I forgot about Jarris Walker.
Barely played this season.
Jarris Walker's an interesting piece, David. I mean, geez. Yeah. So this team is so young, so talented, and I think Rick Carlisle is the right coach for this team. I think you got to continue to get better. I think you got to go like the OKC type of route here. In terms of just developing your young guys like Tyrese Halliburton, to see if he could take it to the next level. We know he had an all-star bid, this season. Let's see if he could take it to. I don't necessarily.
He was really never the same guy after that hamstring.
After the hamstring,
hamster calf, whatever it was. He was never the same player. He wasn't. So let's see him get off season, him and Pascal Siakam have an off season together, and see what this team looks like when they're healthy. As for off season priorities, I mean, we got to re-sign Pascal Siakam. I think you bring back Obi Toppin too in a decent number. I think
both of them
proved that he was a valuable player on this team. I think you let McDermott walk, but I think this is whatever you like. A lot of your cap space is probably going to be used bringing guys back.
Dougie McBuckets is gone. He's come on now.
He's a journeyman. He's a journeyman player at this point.
He's a journeyman.
Like you got to prove to the people that this wasn't a fluke. Like you got people saying like the only reason you made it as far as you did is because the Knicks got beat up.
That's probably not wrong.
And so like it's probably not wrong, but like so like if you're the Pacers, you gotta take you take that as a slight, and you come out next season and you say no, we here, we legit, and whether the Knicks were beat up or healthy, we still would have beat them.
Yep. Moving on from the Indiana Pacers, let's talk about our Chicago Bulls. They do have some big time names when it comes to free agency. They have the 11th overall pick in this upcoming draft. They have DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Williams, who's a restricted free agent, and Andre Drummond as a free agent. And Lonzo Ball has a player option, which I would be shocked if he declined.
I heard Lonzo Ball.
He's been accepting that.
Yeah.
Oh, did he?
Lonzo Ball will be ready next season. I'm really interested to see how this team, like, because remember when they were all healthy, right? TJ, they were the number one team in the East. They were number one defense in the East, in the NBA or something like that. Top 5 in the NBA. They're one of the best.
Their closing lineup was Lonzo, AC, Levine, DeMar, and I think was it Drummond? Usually the Drummond was one of them.
Yeah, I don't think Drummond was on that team at the time.
It was Booch, yeah. I mean, this team. So, but here we go. Do I believe that shit that DeMar DeRozan said? I want to finish my career here. Absolutely not. I don't believe it anymore because I think DeMar DeRozan.
If I'm him, I'm tired of mediocrity. Like I want to have a championship. Like the only thing missing in my quote unquote trophy case is an NBA championship. And I think the Bulls. I think this experiment needs to come to an end. I think they need to look to move some of their bigger. Like Zach LaVine should have been traded. They probably never should have re-signed him. I know TJ will probably argue that they should have, but they. Like Zach LaVine probably should be traded this offseason if they can find it. But I'm also not a fan of like attaching. Like I don't think he's a negative asset, which all these rumors are like the Bulls will have to attach stuff to him in order to trade him away. I just don't think that's a reality.
Here's the funny thing about Bulls fans, right? And we see it all the time. If we didn't re-sign Zach LaVine, it's why didn't you re-sign him? But like now that we re-signed him, why didn't you trade him? Like that's the issue that like it's the ongoing story with Bulls fans. Like if I'm management, it's just like yo, there's just no satisfying you ungrateful sons of da 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 da. Y'all like seriously, like y'all know the average wins, like how many wins the Bulls average since Derrick Rose tore his ACL?
Yeah, they had the lowest win total in the NBA before they made the playoffs a couple seasons ago.
That ain't the answer to the question. Do you know how many wins they averaged since Derrick Rose tore his ACL?
About 40, no. 45.
I bet it's like 30.
41. They averaged 41 wins a season since Derrick Rose tore his ACL. That is on purpose because Jerry Reinsdorf is quoted as saying, just because you don't win the championship don't mean you didn't have a good season. According to and I'm willing to bet Jerry Reinsdorf thinks that stadium appearance qualified as a good season.
This shit could go deep because you know he's the owner of the Bulls and the Sox, and he don't care about neither one of them teams. As long as the money keeps rolling in, the money keeps rolling in, especially the Bulls is his cash cow, the Sox is a side project. The Bulls, he just knows, okay, if we put a team out there that's gonna like maybe get that's gonna get a little bit of the people excited. Maybe they can make the playoffs. They know that Chicago is a basketball city, and in the wintertime, people love to go to Blackhawks games and they love to go to Chicago Bulls games. Okay, so he knows that people are gonna feel the team. He does not own the Blackhawks, but I'm saying though, That's what people do. People do it in Chicago.
Yeah,
The two
true.
sporting
But
events that they're going to.
I've been on there. I think DeMar DeRozan's probably going to be leaving, going somewhere else. I think Lakers is probably a potential. I think that what the really interesting part about the Bulls offseason is the Patrick Williams decision. Like, so they didn't give him a contract extension this most recent offseason, which they could have. He didn't play particularly good this most recent season, even with his role kind of just being the same. But he got moved to the bench and just wasn't a productive player this season. What do you think happens with him?
He gone.
I really don't we see GMs, especially GMs of newer regimes, they tend to be more patient with guys they pick. Like we saw it in Denver, right? Like they took Michael Porter Jr. and
paid him.
People hated that pick. He came in with a bad back. He's 6'10". He don't play like he's 6'10". It took him a minute to find his role, and he's a 6'10" spot up shooter. And I wholeheartedly think that at times Michael Porter Jr. forgets that he's 6'10". Like, bro, if you don't get your big ass in the post and post somebody up every once in a while, yeah. But fans loved him. They love him now because of what he's turned into and because he's a contributing factor. For a fact, you can count on a good 15 points from Michael Porter Jr. when you play the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, I think it feels. I wish I could find the live video that I had where I was ranting and raving, being furious that we did not pick him back in that draft when we ended up picking Wendell Carter Jr. Absolutely on fire. I was on fire, and I'm still on fire. Why we never picked Michael Porter Jr.
I mean, Patrick Williams has missed a lot of time in the last couple of seasons, especially this season and 2 years ago. And he hasn't his numbers across the board have gotten progressively worse. Like his field goal percentage has dipped each of the last 3 seasons. His 3-point percentage has dipped each of the last 3 seasons. His free throw percentage dipped last year. His numbers across the board this season, as opposed to last season,
they just dipped. David, come on, they dipped. He's not good.
I think that's his saving. I think that's why AK and them kind of they ain't give him a deal, but they not moving on either.
At the time, I was not mad at them drafting Patrick Williams. He was ACC 6th Man of the Year. He was young as heck. He had all the intangibles. He had big hands. He had a good shooting form. He was athletic. Yeah. He had great defensive ability. I think at the time it was such a great pick. And then they just never developed him. And he never developed into a confident basketball player. Because last season we saw certain stretches and where we were like, damn, if Patrick Williams was consistent like this, he would be a Scotty Barnes type of player, like a Scotty Barnes type of player. And he just doesn't put it together consistently game after game. He'll have a game where he'll drop 20 points, 25 points. He's making all these threes. He's making defensive stops, making mid-range after mid-range after mid-range. And then the next 5 games, he'll have, under 10 points. Yeah.
The Bulls, if the DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Williams, and Andre Drummond all clear off their books, along with Torrey Craig, if he does not pick up his player option, the Bulls should have about $15 million worth of cap space to potentially make a run at somebody else. Moving on from the Chicago Bulls, let's talk about the Detroit Pistons. Real quick before we move on from the Bulls, what do they got to do with the 11th overall
11th overall pick? Go get Terrence Shannon Jr. If you know DeMar DeRozan is gone, obviously I would love for them to resign Drummond, but I think Drummond has really he's gonna earn himself a nice contract. I think next season with somebody else. Patrick Williams gone, but I think with the 11th overall pick, either Terrence Shannon Jr. or I think Stephon Castle's off the board at that point, but whatever.
PJ. It's just that's the whole we haven't been able to figure out that 3/4 spot probably since Luol Deng left. We ain't had a serviceable small forward since Luol Deng. Consistently.
If Dalton Connects at 11, I would run up to the board and take him for the Bulls.
That's such a Bulls pick though. Like that would not go over well at all, bro. Like, and there's
What,
nothing against
getting Dalton Connect won't go over well with Bulls fans?
not here, bro. You know, like no, not here.
What?
Absolutely not. That was they.
That is,
Bro.
David, do you know who
I-
Dalton Connect is?
Yes, I'm aware of who he is. The kid from Tennessee.
He's awesome. Oh my God. Are you
Izzy,
serious?
I guarantee you, Bulls fans would treat that as we was just talking about it. We was literally just talking about it. Doug
What about-
McDermott. They would treat that as Doug McDermott all over again. I promise you.
Man, Dalton Connect is a big boy. Moving on to the Detroit Pistons before we wait 3 years on the Bulls. Moving on to the Detroit Pistons, they're going to have nearly $50 million worth of cap space.
Nobody wants to play there.
I know, but they'll have it. Okay. Evan Fournier has a team option that I imagine they'll decline. James Wiseman is just a straight up free agent. They have the opportunity to give Cade Cunningham a potential rookie max contract. Jaden Ivey can be assigned to an extension this offseason as well. Jalen Duren is still on this team who's also eligible for an extension. They missed out on the lottery odds again, so they end up with the 5th overall pick. Who is the future of this team, and what should the priorities be for the Detroit Pistons as they once again finish with the worst record in the NBA and didn't get the 1st overall pick? Is the future on this team? If the future is the future of the Pistons on this team right now?
Yes, Cade Cunningham.
No, it's not.
Cade Cunningham is a dog. What?
I can't trust you to play 60 games, bro.
I agree with TJ. I think the face of the franchise, so whoever is going to be the future of the Detroit Pistons basketball, he's not on this team.
You ain't gonna get it in this draft. I'll tell you that, Bucko. Okay, you ain't gonna get it with the 5th overall pick.
I'm not paying him 6 years, $200+ million for 60. Like I'm not doing it, bro. I'm not.
It's happening.
Like,
it's gonna happen.
I'm gonna get that money.
We gotta stop rewarding ass. We gotta stop rewarding ass.
What? Okay, so what do you think about LaMelo Ball then?
He's scoring like that's why Charlotte is ass. Like, bro, like it's the same boat. Like, bro, like it's the same boat. Like, don't get me wrong, they are fine players. Players.
Cade Cunningham just doesn't. He at least not yet. He hasn't contributed to winning.
It doesn't amount to winning. It doesn't. And when you look
the roster,
that's even worse. It's like that's even worse.
I don't even think James Wiseman.
That's even worse, Izzy. That's even worse because after a while, when you got lottery pick after lottery pick after lottery pick after lottery pick, that's a lot of lotteries. You got to put some kind of viable product on the court, not 18 wins.
We said the same thing about Orlando. Look where they at.
Thank you. That's my point.
Yeah, but Orlando, like their best 2 players play majority of Cade Cunningham has been remotely pretty unavailable for a majority of his career. I mean, 2023 plays 12 games.
You drafted Jaden Ivey and you don't know what to do with him.
Last year he was very. Last year when he did play, he was very good.
You drafted Jaden Ivey and you don't know what to do with him.
Well,
right?
Jaden Ivey's.
I don't even think he knows what to do with himself. Sometimes.
Oh, he just like what? It's just like what? Why am I here? Like, hey, if I do, like, it's too much of Jaden Ivey is in a position where if he messes up, he's looking over to the bench and he's probably gonna get sat down. Like right now, I feel wholeheartedly in my heart, confidently.
I think they got some nice young players.
Jalen Duren is the best player on that team.
Look, I think they got some nice young players. I mean, I like the fact that they traded for Simone Fontecchio from the Jazz. I like Marcus Sasser coming off the bench. I do, despite all the hate that you just spewed out both of y'all mouths about Cade Cunningham. I love Cade Cunningham.
I never said he wasn't a good. Wasn't he? I never said he wasn't a good player.
And I think Jaden Ivey is a nice young player.
Me and TJ are speaking facts here. We're speaking facts here. The guy just doesn't play a lot of games. Like he doesn't play much, and then when he does play, and when he does play. when he does play, he doesn't contribute a lot to winning. They haven't won a lot.
No,
I don't know if that's breaking news for you or whatever. But
Okay, hold on. Some Detroit fans out here are kind of maybe they're watching a podcast and they're probably pissed off because one thing I will say is that Cade Cunningham was the only reason this season, and I know this season they didn't do a lot of winning, but this season he's the only reason why they were in any contest that they were in. It was because of him. And it wasn't many.
Right. Out of the 50 games he played, wow.
He played 62 games.
Cade Cunningham can be an SGA type of player. He can be an SGA type of player. Just let him get.
They've used these lottery picks like Jaden Ivey on Azar Thompson. Neither of those guys have really impacted this roster. Well, I know Azar Thompson missed a lot of the season, but
he's a rookie. Azar Thompson. This is a young team. This is a young roster. Continue to build, grow back. Look, James Wiseman. Get rid of him. Evan Fournier, obviously, he gone. But James Wiseman doesn't even though all the potential, second overall pick, whatever the hell he was. First of all, he doesn't even you might as well call him Kwame Brown, okay? Because he can't put
at least Kwame Brown got a couple paychecks in the NBA before he got chased out.
James Wiseman not even about to get chased out the NBA, bro. Okay.
How many years they've been building?
The last time they made the playoffs was when they had Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin. Oh no, not Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin. It was Blake Griffin. It was Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose didn't make the playoffs. It was Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin was on the team. They made the playoffs.
Yeah, we're talking
that was
like
6 years ago. That was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
They've been rebuilding.
It's a lot of building.
Like 6-7 years ago.
Last time they made the playoffs was in 2018. So they haven't made the playoffs in 2018.
6 years ago.
6 years. They've been rebuilding for 6 years, and yet all they have to show for is 14 wins and a handful of lottery picks.
That's a lot of building. That's
okay,
a lot of
now you guys tell me what the hell they're supposed to do. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, their priorities continue to build the roster with the 5th overall pick. You know,
but you can't say that though because you just said
go get the best player available.
You just said the franchise changer is not going to be there at 5.
He's not. I said go get the best player available.
Like, what's the difference?
Put it all together. Go get Matalis.
So here's the
go
thing.
get Modest Bucelis. Go get Modest Bucelis or Stephon Castle.
You paid Monty Williams a boatload of money.
Yeah, and they were talking in the NBA.
And there's talks of firing him. There was talks of firing Monty.
Well, I would have fired him too if he lost 30 straight damn games. Shit.
As you mentioned earlier in the show, the roster is not exactly the roster's not exactly up to snuff, and they're gonna have a very hard time.
Here's the thing. All right, so this is like step one. Step one is because we're asking questions about who's the face. That's what's established. Like that's what you got to do. Like if Cade is the guy, right? And according to Izzy, Cade is the guy. All right, so Cade's the guy. So hypothetical, Cade ain't going nowhere. Cade is your starting one, right? Duran is your starting 5.
He's solid as hell. Have you
solid as hell. I like Jalen Duran. Like if you ask me to choose between Jalen Duran and Cade Cunningham, I'm probably going with Jalen Duran. That's just me. That's just me. That's just me. That's my opinion. I am allowed to have that opinion.
No, you're not. You're not allowed.
So like the issue is 2 through 4. Are you putting Asar Thompson at that 2 spot or 3 spot?
Yeah.
He's small forward. Put him at 3.
I mean, he got. I think Quentin Grimes is probably the shooting guard of your future.
You put him at the 3. All right. So we're going with Cade, Quentin Grimes,
Asar Thompson, and then Simone Fontecchio. He was also a free agent. Fontecchio, thank you.
And Duran at the 5. That's just
if they re-sign Fontecchio because he is a free agent as well.
Yes.
So like now it's all right. So Marcus Sasser at that 6 man, I like that.
I like
I like Jay 90 coming up there, benches their six man too. If they don't trade him this offseason.
Like that's the issue that we have. Like you got young dudes on this team because they're a bad team. They could like all these dudes can start. Sasser can start. Ivy can start. Caden Cunningham can start. Grimes can start. Like these are guys that can start for this team because they're just so damn terrible.
The problem is you can have as much talent as you want on a young talent as you want on an NBA roster, but when the pieces do not fit together, like we can have a great puzzle, right? And a great puzzle, like 5, 6, 7.
That's the problem. I think that's the problem right now. They have a bunch of pieces
together. Then
they have a bunch of pieces that don't fit. They have a bunch of pieces.
They have great pieces, but they don't fit. I feel like all those guys we mentioned, except we're not getting rid of Cade Cunningham. Let's just get rid of that. All those guys we mentioned can go on other teams and contribute. No, man.
It's true. Kenny Cunningham's not going anywhere.
Man.
They're about to.
Cunningham was on the Bulls, bro. For real,
Detroit's about to back up the Binks truck for Cade Cunningham. Let me tell you.
Yeah, they are. Hey, and look, they're gonna be terrible next year. So what? Continue to be terrible. Continue to be terrible. Continue to be terrible.
Eventually, this terribleness needs to go somewhere. Like Orlando turned the corner. I mean, they were terrible for a long time.
Continue to be terrible until Mohamed Debone comes out and comes out.
And here's the thing.
He's 12 years old.
Cooper Flag or whatever his name is.
Continue to be terrible until Cooper Flag comes available, right? I say Mohamed Debone because man, he's 12, 13 years old, man. Right? He's in about 6, 7 years. He's gonna be
when we had this conversation last year, I legit said, hey, the goal for Detroit is to just double up. What did they win last year?
14 games. They lost 5 more. They lost 5. They won 5 fewer games than the year before. So
punch your ticket in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. That's what
like once you determine the pecking order and all the other good stuff.
Seems like we're losing TJ there a little bit. But yeah, that's been our Central Division offseason preview. Thank you very much for joining us here at Prime Sports World. Tomorrow is probably the final game of the national basketball season, as that series is for sure probably going to be a sweep. But yeah, I'm David Huppin, Israel Rivera, TJ Hopkins. Gentlemen, what do we do here at the Prime, my friends?
Bring the heat, baby.
Hey,
bring the heat. I think Dallas wins tomorrow.
Well, you guys all have a good night. Stay safe out there. Peace out, gentlemen.
Dallas with the dub tomorrow.